In the heart of the night, this world will burn bright. We will set it alight. In the heart of the night, in the heart of the night, this world will burn bright. We will set it alight. In the heart of the night.
Hello everyone, I'm Anthropomantic Fiend, and I do horror-related things on the internet. I'm doing another movie review. I'm doing a bunch of them this week because nosebleeds aren't fun, and I had a lot of those last week, which meant I wasn't doing reviews. I was trying to recover from nosebleeds and then having more nosebleeds, which I think that's all done with. I'm feeling a lot better now, so hooray. Anyway, this next movie I'm doing is Samuel Bleak, which is sort of an anomaly on the 30 Nightmare Movies box set because it's not really a horror movie. It's just sort of a dark drama, and it's a really good dark drama, which I'll get into in just a minute, but it's not a horror movie. But I've come to expect that with a lot of these box sets because they will try to squeeze in crime dramas and mysteries and things if they think they can pass it off as a horror movie, which usually with like the older movies they usually can if it has like Lugosi or Karloff in it, but this is a newer film. I don't remember exactly when it came out, but it is definitely more recent. It's not a horror movie, but it's a really good movie. I don't really care. I'm hardly complaining. It's about this guy named Samuel Bleak who is found in the woods by this police officer. He's been living in this shack that he's built in the woods, and the officer finds a typewriter that he's been typing on, and he's sort of been typing his autobiography on this typewriter, and he reads the first page, and then he finds Samuel, who's grown this huge beard. He's been living out in the woods this whole time, and brings him back. And throughout the movie we see glimpses of Samuel's past. He had a really messed up, troubled childhood. I feel so bad for him. But we sort of see that get pieced together, and we meet these people living inside this mental hospital. There's a girl who's committed or attempted suicide multiple times, and a guy who, yeah, that's a spoiler. I'm not going to get into that, but he's in there, and this woman, I believe her name is Catherine, has tried to attempt suicide a bunch of different times. She tries once, and she's tried to cut her wrists with like a screw that she's pulled out of a chair in her room, and she ends up in a hospital bed next to Samuel, and she like instantly falls in love with him, and she stops trying to attempt suicide and wants to be with him. And then there's this other guy, Dexter, in there who just becomes insanely jealous. There's like a scene where he goes in and just pours Samuel's water on his food. The police officer's trying to figure out what's going on with him, and then he tells the guy who he believes to be Samuel's father that they found him in the woods and that he's alive. The dad just loses it. First he's just like, that's impossible, my son's dead. And then he goes to the hospital and basically drags Samuel back to his house. And it's just a nice little drama that just sort of shows you the troubled minds of a bunch of people living in this little town. It ends up being very bittersweet and wonderful. Film quality isn't great. It's clearly lower budget, but it's still very well shot. It has probably the most beautiful soundtrack I've heard out of any movie in this box set. It's got sort of this recurring theme. It's just like 4 chords, which I'm pretty sure are pretty close to like the 4 chords you hear in every single pop song ever, but they just use them in a way that it's just like fleeting piano chords at the beginning of the movie, and it just builds and builds until the very ending of the movie where it just crescendos into this huge epic thing. And it's just a really beautiful, well done soundtrack. By far not the greatest, most nuanced soundtrack I've heard, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. The actor who plays Samuel does not talk at all, but without talking, he manages to get across so much emotion, and people who can act without dialogue always manage to impress me. Everything about this movie is a little bit rough around the edges, but I can totally forgive it because I connected with the characters and the story, and it was just a really beautiful, bittersweet little movie. The costuming and the sets were great, especially Samuel Bleak's shack. He's built like a wind chime out of like broken bottles and other things, and just pieced it together from whatever he can find, and he's got these tattered clothes that he wears, these fingerless gloves. It's just a really cool design. And the rest of the movie looks great too, but there's not really much else noteworthy about it. I mean, except for the fact that Dexter has started like making artwork out of like plastic cups and plastic utensils from the mental hospital, and just sort of making all these things, and it's all hung on his wall. So that was fun as well. It's a good movie. Don't expect horror. Don't expect scares or too much suspense. Definitely don't expect gore or anything like that, but expect some dark stuff and a good movie. I definitely highly recommend Samuel Bleak. And with that, I'm going to get into spoilers. Samuel's relationship with his mom and with his dad, especially his dad, was really messed up. Throughout the movie, we've sort of pieced together that when he was little, Samuel's dad just sort of walked in on his birthday and slammed a gun down in front of him and was like, "Happy birthday, son, here's a gun." It's just like, wow, you already don't like this guy. And then Samuel is playing with his dog. Dad wants him to come inside, and he won't. So the dad shoots the dog. We also find out that Samuel's mom kind of did some messed up stuff with him, and it's just sort of been haunting his dreams throughout this thing. For that reason, his dad locked his mom in a shed behind his house and burned it and abused her numerous times. So yeah, this is a dark movie, and, you know, obviously you've got Catherine, who's committing suicide for whatever reason. She may have depression. It's never really said. She's just attempted suicide numerous times. Dexter is tormented by the death of his brother, who he believes he killed because a car hit him, and he never said anything or tried to stop him, and so he feels horrible. And after bullying Samuel for a while, he sort of comes around and he's like, "You're my brother now. I'm going to protect you and help you and do what you need to do." So he helps him to break out, which happens to be an absolutely hilarious scene that I refuse to spoil. I mean, it's not the funniest thing in the world, but it was funny. Actually, what the heck, I'm going to spoil it. You hear, like, the water running in Samuel's room, and they're trying to break out, and Catherine manages to get the keys from an extremely perverted guard and break Samuel out, and they have no idea who's inside Samuel's room. You just hear the water running in there while Samuel and a bunch of other people are leaving, and they break in, and Dexter's just sitting in the bathtub fully clothed, and he asks him, "Can you wash my back, please?" They manage to break Samuel out, and he goes back to find his father, and it just sort of flashes through all these memories that he's had. He ends up cornering his dad inside the new shed, back where the old shed was, and pointing a gun at him, and we see the flash of all these memories flooding back through his mind, and he just screams at his dad. Samuel, like, whispers in his ears, "I forgive you," and then Dad allows himself to be locked inside the shed while Samuel burns it down. And that's the end of the movie. There's a bunch of other plot threads as well, with all the other characters, the cop and his wife who works at the mental hospital. But it's not the greatest thing in the world, but I thoroughly enjoyed it and highly recommend it. I don't really have anything else to say, except thank you for watching my video, and I hope you watch more. So I will hopefully see you in another video. Goodbye.